Hey everyone, so first things first, we're going to go over the nervous system. Next, we're going to go over the skeletal system, and then we're going to go over the muscular system. And then we're going to explain how all of these three systems integrate together to produce proper movement to move around in the physical aspect of our work. So, the nervous system. The nervous system is one of the main organ systems of the body and consists of a network of specialized cells called neurons. And this picture right here, that is what a neuron looks like. A neuron consists of a nucleus, dendrites, an axon, a node, neurolemma, myelin sheath, and synaptic terminals. We're going to go over what all those are. Specialized cells called neurons that transmit and coordinate signals, providing a communication network within the human body. The nervous system is divided into two parts, the central and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is composed of the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system contains only nerves and connects to the brain and spinal cord to the rest of the body. The three primary functions of the nervous system include sensory, integrative, and motor functions. Sensory function is the ability of the nervous system to sense changes in either the internal or external environment, such as a stretch placed on a muscle, internal, or the change from walking on a sidewalk to walking on the sand, external. Integrative function is the ability of the nervous system to analyze and interpret the sensory information to allow for proper decision making. So integrative function is the ability of the nervous system to analyze and interpret. So that is your nervous system's ability to interpret exactly what it is that it's touching, what it's feeling, which produces an appropriate response. Motor function is the neuromuscular or nervous and muscular systems. So neuromuscular is the combination of the muscular and the nervous system put together. Neuromuscular or nervous and muscular systems response to the sensory information, such as causing a muscle to contract when stretched too far or changing one's walking pattern when walking in the sand as opposed to on the sidewalk. So motor function is basically the nervous system's response to recruit the proper muscles to move in a specific direction according to your changed environment. The nervous system is responsible for the recruitment of muscles, learned patterns of movement, and the functioning of every organ in the human body. Proprioception is the body's ability to sense the relative position of adjacent parts of the body, such as being in an unstable environment. Proprioception is your nervous system's ability to maintain balance and notice how unstable, say you're on a Bosu ball. For those of you who don't know what a Bosu ball is, when you go to the gym, those are the half medicine balls, the blue ones that have one side filled with air and then the other side is flat. That is responsible for training your proprioceptive abilities, and it is very good for training your muscles and training your muscles in the nervous system to be balanced in unstable environments. For example, when we walk or run, our feet give us proprioceptive feedback about the type of surface or terrain we are on. Training the body's proprioceptive abilities will improve balance, coordination, and posture, and enable the body to adapt to its surroundings without consciously thinking about what movement is most appropriate for any given situation. Thus, it becomes important to train the nervous system efficiently to ensure that proper movement patterns are being developed, which enhances performance and decreases the risk of injury. Now we're going to go over the anatomy of the neuron. Okay, so the neuron. The functional unit of the nervous system is known as the neuron. Billions of neurons make up a complex structure of the nervous system and provide it with the ability to communicate internally with itself, as well as externally with the outside environment. And when it means internally, that is such as sensing that your muscle is overstretched, or a ligament is in a little bit of pain, or you're hungry. Those are all part of the nervous system's ability of communicating with itself internally. A neuron is a specialized cell that processes and transmits information through both electrical and chemical signals. Neurons form the core of the nervous system, which includes the brain, spinal cord, and peripheral ganglia. Collectively, the merging of many neurons together forms the nerves of the body. Neurons are composed of three main parts: the cell body, axon, and dendrites. The cell body, or soma, of a neuron contains a nucleus and other organelles, including lysosomes, mitochondria, and the Golgi complex. Now, this part right here, that is the cell body. Okay? Now let's continue. The axon is a cylindrical projection from the cell body that transmits nerve impulses to the other neurons or effector sites, muscles, and organs. So, the axon is the point where the cell body transmits its information to other neurons in the body. Because you have billions of these neurons and they connect together and they transfer electrical signals from one neuron to another all the way up to the brain, and then the brain then responds to it by sending an electrical signal back all the way through those neurons to create appropriate response to whatever it is you are interpreting. Okay, so the axon is a cylindrical projection from the cell body and transmits nerve impulses to other neurons or effector sites, muscles, or organs. The axon is the part of the neuron that provides communication from the brain and spinal cord to other parts of the body. The dendrites gather information from other structures and transmit it back to the neuron. Now, the dendrites are basically the parts that are most closely related or closely to the surface of the skin, because they are responsible for picking up external things from the external environment. Kind of like when I was reading in my last video about the five senses, the Meissner's corpuscles and the Pacinian corpuscles and the free nerve endings. Those are basically the dendrites. There are three main functional classifications of neurons that are determined by the direction of their nerve impulses. Sensory or afferent neurons respond to touch, sound, light, and other stimuli and transmit nerve impulses from effector sites, such as muscles and organs, to the brain and spinal cord. So basically, sensory neurons are what is responsible for taking in what it is perceiving, such as when you touch something, your brain is interpreting it as you are touching it. Interneurons transmit nerve impulses from one neuron to another. So interneurons are where the electrical signals are being transferred from each neuron to each neuron all the way to the brain, and then back from the brain through the interneurons from neuron to neuron to create a specific response. And then from one to another. Motor or efferent neurons transmit nerve impulses from the brain and spinal cord to the effector sites, such as muscles or glands. So, when you touch something, let's say this napkin, your sensory neurons are taking in that you're touching this napkin, and then all that information, it's sending electrical waves all the way through your interneurons, and then they reach all the way to the brain, and then the brain then creates a certain response as to what it's perceiving, all the way back down through those interneurons to create a motor response. And that's basically how that part works. A classic example of how these three neurons work together. Okay, this example is probably much better than mine. Okay, how the three neurons work together to produce a given response can be seen in the example of a person's touching a hot object. The sensory or afferent neurons send a signal from the hand to the brain, telling the brain that the object is hot. This signal makes its way to the brain by traveling from one neuron to another via the interneurons. Once the signal has made it to the brain then interprets the information sent from the sensory neurons, the object is hot, and sends an appropriate signal down to the muscle of the hand and arm via the motor neurons telling the muscles to contract and pull the hand away from the object, protecting the hand from injury. Okay, so I'm going to end this video right here. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. We went over the nervous system and also the anatomy of the nerve. Now we're going to go over the central and peripheral nervous systems, and then the physical activity in the nervous system working together. So, see you guys in a minute.